Gopijana Vallabha Girevare Dhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girevare Dhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girevare Dhari Yasuranandana Braja Janaranjana Yasuranandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanam Chari Yamuna Tiravanam Chari Jayura Madhava Gopijana Vallabha Girevare Dhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girevare Dhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girevare Dhari Yasudanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasudanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanam Chari Yamuna Tiravanam Chari Jayura Damadava Kunjavi Hari Jayura Damadava Kunjavi Hari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Stara Sati Shri Srimad Savangai Shri Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jayam Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Am I the only one with the verse? Am I the only one with the verse?
No.
Everyone's got their phones.
Everyone has a phone.
Is that mandatory? You can't come to class without a phone?
No, we generally display on that, but I think we can do it here.
Well, it's okay. I was just wondering what the standard is.
Yeah.
That's what,
Simplicity, I'm trying to,
huh?
whatever works.
What if they have a flip phone? Those are out of style, I guess, huh?
We'll display on that.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 12, Text 18. Actually, there was something. You have the cartels? Is there any brasso in the temple?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Remember we used to do it once a week, Mocha? Well, it looks like it's once every decade. Get some brasso?
Yeah.
I noticed the other cartels too. Could use a little brasso. Huh?
They're all like that.
They're all like that.
No, not that good. You know,
Straps could be changed too.
yeah.
So we're reading on Perfect Society for Spiritual Classes. Text 17. 17, is that right?
Yeah, 16 were yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. Got a lot of verses here with no purports. Okay. Vanaprastasya Vakshyami Niyaman Muni Samatan Yan Astaya Muni Gachchit Rishi Lokam Uha Anjasa Vanaprastasya Vakshami Niyaman Muni Samatan Yan Astaya Munir Gachchit Rishi Lokam Uhanjasa Vanaprastasya Vakshami Niyaman Muni Samatan Yan Astaya Munir Gachchit Rishi Lokam Uhanjasa Vanaprastasya Vakshami Niyaman Muni Samatan Yan Astaya Munir Gachchit Rishi Lokam Uhanjasa
Vanaprastasya Vakshami Niyaman Muni Sammatan Yanastaya Munir Gachchit Vishilokam Uhanjasa
Vanaprasthasya Vakshami Niyaman Muni Sammatan Yan Asthaya Munir Gachchet Vishilokam Uhanjasa
Vanaprasthasya Vakshami Niyaman Muni Sammatan Yanastaya Munir Gachchet gaccheti
Vyanasaya muni gaccheti
Rishilokam uhanjasa
Rishilokam uhanjasa
Vanaprasthasya vakshami
Vanaprasthasya vakshami
Niyaman muni sammatan
Niyaman muni sammatan
Vyanastaya muni gaccheti
Vyanasaya muni gaccheti
Rishilokam uhanjasa
Rishilokam uhanjasa.
Ladies?
Vanaprasthasya vakshami
Vanaprasthasya vakshami
Niyaman muni sammatan
Niyaman muni sammatan
Vyanastaya muni gaccheti
Vyanasaya muni gaccheti
Rishilokam uhanjasa
Rishilokam uhanjasa Vanaprasthasya vakshami Niyaman muni sammatan Vyanastaya muni gaccheti Rishilokam uhanjasa.
Vanaprasthasya,
Vanaprasthasya,
of a person in the Vanaprastha ashram,
of a person in the Vanaprastha ashram,
retired life.
retired life.
Vakshyami,
Vakshami,
I shall now explain.
I shall now explain.
Niyaman,
Niyaman,
the rules and regulations.
the rules and regulations.
Muni Samatan, which are recognized by great munis, philosophers and saintly persons. Yan, which, Astaya, being situated in, or practicing. Muni, a saintly person. Gacchit, is promoted. Rishi Lokam, to the planetary system where the seers and munis go.
To the planetary system where the seers and munis go.
Maharloka.
Maharloka.
Uha,
Uha,
O king.
O king.
Anjasa,
Anjasa,
without difficulty.
without difficulty.
Translation. O king, I shall now describe the qualifications for a vanaprastha, one who is retired from family life. By rigidly following the rules and regulations for the vanaprastha, one can easily be elevated to the upper planetary system known as Maharloka. No purport. Nakushta pachyam asniyad akushtam chapyak kalata agni pakvam atamam va arka pakvam utaharit. A person in vanaprastha life should not eat grains grown by tilling of the fields. Should also not eat grains that have grown without tilling of the field, but are not fully ripe. Nor should a vanaprastha eat grains cooked in fire. Indeed, he should eat only fruit ripened by the sunshine. Vanyais charu paro dasan nirvapit kalachoditan labdhe nave nadya puranam cha parityajat. A vanaprastha should prepare cakes to be offered in sacrifice from fruits and grains grown naturally in the forest. When he obtains some new grains, he should give up his old stock of grains. Agniyatam eva sharanam utajam vajrikandaram shayeta hima vayagni varshakatapa shatsvayam. A vanaprastha should prepare a thatched cottage or take shelter of a cave in a mountain only to keep the sacred fire. But he should personally practice enduring snowfall, wind, fire, rain, and the shining of the sun. Kesha Roma Nakasmashru Malani Jatalo Dadat Kamandal Vajane Danda Vakalagni Parichjadan. The Vanaprastha should wear matted locks of hair on his head and let his body, hair, nails, and mustache grow. He should not, oh boy. He should not cleanse his body of dirt. Hope none of them come here. He should keep a water pot, deerskin, and rod, wear the bark of a tree as a covering, and use garments colored like fire. I'm not going to ask questions. Chared vane dvadas shabdam astava chaturo muni dvav ekam vayata budhir na vipadyeta kritstrata. Being very thoughtful, a Vanaprastha should remain in the forest for 12 years, 8 years, 4 years, 2 years, or at least 1 year. He should behave in such a way that he will not be disturbed or troubled by too much austerity. Yada kalpas vakriyayam vyadibir jaryatava anvikshikyam va vidyayam kuryad anasanadikam. When because of disease or old age, one is unable to perform his prescribed duties for advancement in spiritual consciousness or study of the Vedas, he should practice fasting, not taking any food. Atman yagnin samaropya sanyasyaham mamatmanam mahatmatam Garaneshu nyaset samyak sangatam tuyatarhata. Translation: he should properly place the fire element in his own self and in this way give up bodily affinity by which one thinks the body to be one's self or one's own. One should gradually merge the material body into the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and sky. Purport: the body is an effect of a cause, namely the 5 material elements: earth, water, fire, air, and sky. In other words, one should know perfectly well that the material body is nothing but a combination of the 5 elements. This knowledge constitutes merging of the material body and the 5 material elements. Merging into Brahman in perfect knowledge means understanding perfectly one is not the body, but a spiritual soul. Well, that's the purport there. Maybe I'll stop here for now and say a few words. I didn't pick these verses. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshon Minitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Nangayate Garim Yad Kipatamaham Vande Shri Gunandina Taranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itinare Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavari Pastuchade Satarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse and the verses we've read so far are response from Narada Muni to a question put forward by Maharaj Yudhishthira, where he asks, "My dear Lord, I wish to hear from you about the principles of religion by which one can attain the ultimate goal of life, devotional service. I wish to hear about the general occupational duties of human society and the system of social and spiritual advancement known as Varnashram Dharma." So, in the previous chapter, Narada Muni described the different varnas, and in this chapter, he's describing the spiritual classes. So far, he has covered brahmacharya, and in these verses, he's beginning the discussion about vanaprastha. And while reading the verses, looking at them this morning, I was reflecting, and of course, that this was spoken at a time when to perform an activity such as this was something that was possible to be done. Although the verses described first, try to do it for 12 years, 8 years, 4 years, 2 years, 1 year, but at least 1 year. Could be done, but certainly it's not easy. And I was thinking that what would happen if we tried to put such principles into effect now? Like, for instance, in Boston, somebody goes out to the woods and probably be arrested in a few days. First fire he started. Of course, he's not supposed to use fire except in the cave. But there are people, but I doubt that they've adopted this lifestyle for the purpose of detaching themselves from household affairs, which is what vanaprastha life is meant to be. Therefore, we look at different examples in modern times, and we can understand that such vanaprastha, at least Srila Prabhupada, for instance, he also took vanaprastha. We spoke about it the other night when he left his family, and for a few years he lived without his family. And what was his motivation and impetus to do that? Actually, I was looking this morning and I picked Prabhupada's own words. He was telling the story about his own family life. And of course we know from Prabhupada Lilamrita that Prabhupada tried his best for many, many years to be responsible grihastha and to maintain his family and through his work, and at the same time, because he had met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur at a young age, throughout his household life, although he was responsible, he was at the same time doing whatever he could to contribute to the activities of the Gaudiya Math. And at a certain point of time, Prabhupada also, even while still with his family, he started preaching. In fact, I think he could be wrong, but I think he went to Jhansi first time, still with his family. Not his family didn't go with him, but he was still maintaining his family when he went to Jhansi to start the League of the Devotees. And for his family to observe Prabhupada coming and going was something that was quite common at the later years in Prabhupada's family life. Because he would go, one time he would go on parikram with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and while he was still married, he would assist his godbrothers in the Gaudiya Math, and helping them establish in different mats in different cities, especially the sannyasis. He would provide facilities for them, he would donate to them. In many ways, he was already actively participating in the activities of the Gaudiya Math, although, as we mentioned the other night, he was not directly living in the ashram and he didn't give up his family life. But at one point in his life, and Prabhupada described, I was going to use Prabhupada's own words, rather than, at one point in his life, Prabhupada said, he was speaking about his wife and his family, said, I wanted as much as possible to get her to work with me in spreading Krishna consciousness, to get her help. But she was very determined. She wouldn't help me in spreading Krishna consciousness. So finally, after many years, I could understand. She would not be any assistance to me. She was very attached to drinking tea. I was always telling her not to drink tea, because I wanted to have a nice Vaishnava family. So although I was repeatedly telling her, this time I finally said, you have to choose between me or tea. Either the tea goes or I go. In this way, I was even criticizing my own family. But because they were thinking I was the husband or father, they couldn't take my instructions seriously. So she replied, give up tea drinking or give up my husband? Well, I will have to give up my husband. I will have to give up my husband then. Prabhupada says, of course, she thought I was joking. Then, of course, it describes that Radharani, Prabhupada's wife, that Radharani, Radharani Day. One time, Prabhupada was out, as he had gone, oftentimes he had gone out, and he would do his work. He would stay away from the family sometimes, sending money to the family from his work. And while he was out, Radharani took Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, and she took it and bartered it in the to get tea. And in the Lilamrita it says, one day Radharani made a great mistake. And so while Abai was out, his wife took his worshipable Bhagavatam, not tea, for tea biscuits, that's right, to the market and traded it for tea biscuits. Goes well with tea, I guess. When Abai came home and looked for the book, she told him what had happened. She hadn't taken the matter as a very serious thing. She was out of tea biscuits. But Abai was shocked. A wave of resolution had passed over him. His family life was finished. When he told them he was leaving, they didn't understand what he meant. He had been leaving for 30 years. He's always coming and going. When he walked out the door, they thought, there he goes again. He's leaving. It was the usual routine. Everyone could see, even the neighbors. Mr. Day was going again. He had been at home, now he was going. He would be back again, but Abai knew he would never come back. And then Prabhupada says again, before leaving my family, I wanted to get all my sons and daughters married, but some of them disagreed. But then, the time is up. Never mind. Whether they are married or not, let them see to their own business. Suppose I die immediately. Who will take care of my daughter? At that time, we say, God will take care. Then why not now? God will take care. My Guru Maharaj used to say that renunciation of family life was civil suicide. If you commit suicide, that is criminal. But that renunciation of family is voluntarily committing suicide. Now I am dead. Whatever you like, you do. Krishna says, Savardhamam Parichajam, give up all religion. So family is Griha Dhamma, the religion of family. But Krishna says, give that up. But that attachment is there. And if we say that feeling of attachment has to be given up gradually, then that we cannot do because the attachment is there. But if God will take care of them, if I die immediately, then why not now? Prabhupada speaking. So when I read this, I was thinking that actually there was a conversation in Srimad Bhagavatam. We see here now, especially in reference to Prabhupada, that Prabhupada, he took vanaprastha, but actually he continued to wear white. He didn't put on saffron. He continued to wear white. But what did he do? He didn't go to the forest and gather grains of the forest, and refused to take grains that were produced by tilling, didn't refuse to take grains that were cooked. He didn't live off only fruits. He didn't let his hair become matted, his fingernails grow. He didn't become like one, as we see, what are they called? The Naga Babas. and let his beard grow. Prabhupada demonstrated a renunciation of a different type. Although it was renunciation, he renounced family for the purpose of giving more of his activities for the service of his spiritual master, and dedicating more of his time and his life in the execution of the mission that which had been given to him. And that, of course, is by far a superior form of renunciation, simply than to go to the forest and live on roots and berries and detach oneself from the bodily concept of life. Real renunciation means yukta vairagami uchate. Real renunciation means to engage everything that one has in the service of Krishna. And in fact, Prabhupada, he taught those who actually had, in due course of time, after renouncing their family life and living possibly as a vanaprastha for some time, he gave his sannyas disciples, he told them the verse that they should repeat from the Avanti Brahman, etamsa astaya paratmanishtam. So now I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of Neshus by becoming paratmanishta, by firmly taking shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda. And this was taught by our previous acharyas, and in this way, one who actually meditates in this way, that real renunciation is to become fully engaged in the service of Mukunda and taking full shelter of him. Renunciation is far more complete. And Prabhupada, of course, demonstrated that he lived as a vanaprastha for some time. Then, several years later, he took the renounced order of life. And as Lord Kapila Dev says, that one who renounces family for the purpose of the greater family, then this is how to increase one's family members. And Prabhupada, in fact, even said, he used that example, he says, preaching means increasing family members. He wasn't talking about producing children. Although he did say, and quoted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, that if I could produce children who are dedicated, completely to the service of Krishna, that I would produce hundreds of children if they were all completely dedicated for the service of Krishna. Just as Bhaktivinoda Thakur had produced Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He had a large family, but look who was produced from his family. But Prabhupada would say increasing Preaching means increasing the family members, means that it means bringing others into Achyuta Gotra, becoming servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereby this is how we increase the family members. So this is how Prabhupada took Vanaprastha, and this was his example. This is how he demonstrated his service. But as I was reading this section for, as we said, going back many thousands of years ago, when Vanaprastha would be accepted in this way described by Narada Muni, Narada Muni again appeared at a time, and this was when Vidura had gone to places of pilgrimage after he had left the palace. There was a whole conspiracy in the palace. Vidura left his bow at the front and of the palace when Duryodhana had spoken harshly to Vidura. Vidura, as we know, was Dhritarashtra's younger brother. And there was three brothers. There was Vidura, there was Pandu, and Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was the older brother. And Dhritarashtra, of course, was supporting his own sons, the Kauravas, and especially Duryodhana. And when Vidura had recommended to Dhritarashtra to give up, you're so attached, give up your attachment to your son, Duryodhana, he's offense personified. Because he's offensive to the Pandavas, he's offensive to the Lord. Why are you so attached and living in this way? And when Duryodhana heard his uncle speaking in that way to his father, he became so angry, so disturbed. And he said something to the effect of, why should we allow this son of a kept mistress in the palace? Because as we know, Vidura had taken birth from he had to take birth from a mistress. And he said, toss him out of the palace and leave him with only his breath. So Vidura took the statements made by Duryodhana, by his nephew, took the statements as the will of the Supreme. Bhagavatam describes how the illusory energy works in different ways. The illusory energy works in one way for the non-devotees and works in another way for the devotees. The illusory energy was, of course, worked in such a way that Duryodhana offended such a great devotee as Vidura, and Duryodhana, as a result of that offense, had to suffer the consequences. So the illusory energy acted in such a way to bring Duryodhana further away from Krishna. Whereas that same illusory energy can also act as an impetus for the devotee of the Lord. And Vidura was thinking that such is the ways of Krishna's illusory energy, and he was accepting it as divine. So he thought, all along, I've been staying here in the palace, in an attempt to try to educate my brother, educate his family, and try to create an awareness of the offenses they're committed to the Pandavas. But now I'm being thrown out of the palace. Krishna's arrangement. He just accepted it as the will of divine, and he left. And he went to places of pilgrimage for his own purification, and he accepted that as Krishna's will. But when he returned, after some time traveling to pilgrimage, when he returned, then everybody who inquired about their uncle, he had been away for so long, and Vidura was inquiring about the Pandavas, and was inquiring about everyone else, and during that time while he was away, the battle of Kurukshetra had taken place. And Duryodhana was killed, and Dhritarashtra had lost everything. by insurmountable time. And he had lost his sons, he lost, literally everything. And Vidura having returned, there was some conversation between Vidura and the Pandavas. And then Vidura was thinking, now it's time to go and try to speak to my brother again. Maybe he'll be a little receptive. And therefore he was trying to induce Dhritarashtra as much as he tried to do before. And he was explaining to Dhritarashtra how insurmountable time works. And in fact, he was trying to get Dhritarashtra to take Vanaprastha, to give up his attachment to living in the palace and living at the expense of his family. And there's very interesting verses which Vidura tells to Dhritarashtra. He says, insurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are too much attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thought. Mahatma Vidura knew all this, and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra saying, my dear king, he called him king, but actually he wasn't king at all. He was saying this actually in a sarcastic, that's the word I was looking for, in a sarcastic way. Oh, my dear king. But what was he king of? Nothing. He says, my dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you. This frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world. My Lord, it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as eternal time, Kala, that has approached us all. Whoever is under the influence of Supreme Kala, eternal time, must surrender his most dear life. What to speak of other things, such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home. Your father, brother, well-wishers, and sons are all dead, passed away. You yourself have expended the major portion of your life. Your body is now overtaken by invalidity. You're living in the home of another. You've been blind from your very birth, and recently you've become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened. Your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose. Your liver is defective, and you're coughing up mucus. Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog and are eating the remnants of food given by Bhima. There's no need to live a degraded life and subsist on the charity of those whom you tried to kill by arson and poisoning. You also insulted their married wife and usurped their kingdom and wealth. Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment. He is called undisturbed. He goes to an unknown remote place and, freed from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless. He's certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or from others the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. Please, therefore, leave for the north immediately, without letting your relatives know, for soon that time will approach which will diminish the good qualities of men. So, Vidura is speaking to Dhritarashtra in such a way. Prabhupada is similar when he, not to go to the north, not to sit and perform meditation, create the fire within the body, which is actually being described in this verse as to how one should give up one's life, to amalgamate the different elements of the body, earth, water, fire, air, ether, amalgamate them into the totality of the Mahatattva, and to totally detach oneself. Dhritarashtra did that, actually. He did that. And what happened is, what Dhritarashtra, he actually took the instructions to heart that were given to by Vidura, and he immediately left the palace. And then what happened was that Yudhishthira Maharaj came into the palace, and he was looking for Dhritarashtra and Gandhari and Vidura. They were his worshipful superiors. And when he entered into the palace and he couldn't find them, he looked everywhere for them. He was thinking, what has happened? What is to my dear elders, my superiors? And because Yudhishthira Maharaj was always the morality personified. He was always respectful towards his superiors, even towards his uncle Dhritarashtra, despite the atrocities that were committed towards him. And nonetheless, he began to become very overwhelmed and concerned when he could not find them. And then Narada Muni appeared again. Narada Muni is going to speak to Yudhishthira Maharaj again. Narada Muni in the chapter that we're reading right now, he's explaining to Yudhishthira Maharaj. He's instructing him, and also he instructs him at that particular time in the palace. And he told him, he said that your uncle, your aunt, your two uncles, of course Vidura left with Dhritarashtra because he wanted to make sure Dhritarashtra went through with it. He went with Dhritarashtra to make sure that, because Dhritarashtra was his older brother. And a description was given of Dhritarashtra. His teeth were falling out, bile was produced from his liver, mucus, he was old, so old, it was time for him. Why, you're living, and don't you have any sense of moral integrity at all? You're living like a dog, a kept animal, in the house of the same persons you tried to kill. Where's your integrity? And so therefore he convinced Dhritarashtra to leave and to go to the north. But then Vidura went with him because he wanted to make sure Dhritarashtra actually followed through with it. And then, so the two of them left, Dhritarashtra and Vidura, and Gandhari, his aunt. And Narada Muni came and told Yudhishthira Maharaj what happened. He said, your uncles, they have left, your aunt has left, he's gone to the forest, and he has performed exactly the same procedure that Narada Muni is describing to Yudhishthira right around in this chapter of what the Vanaprastha should do. He should amalgamate all the gross elements, realizing, I think that was the verse that we just read, right? Yeah, the last verse. He should properly place the fire element in his own self. This was the last verse we read in today's chapter. He should properly place the fire element in his own self, and in this way give up bodily affinity, by which one thinks the body to be oneself or one's own. One should gradually merge the material body into the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and sky. So that's what Dhritarashtra did. And then, of course, he burned up his body. And then Gandhari, being the chaste wife, she entered into the fire. And she gave up her body so that she can get the same destination as her husband. And then Vidura, he went back out on pilgrimage. And he dedicated the rest of his life in the service of the Lord. So, same principle is there. As we said, the principle is to awaken detachment. That if one doesn't awaken detachment, and if one lives completely attached then at the time of death, then one will read, if he reads the third canto of the Bhagavatam, there is very, very, very powerful description of what happens to the attached householder who doesn't give up his attachments at the time of death and what he has to go through. Now, of course, we know this is the non-devotee. And for the devotee, their destination is not the same as the non-devotee. For the devotee, he has a better destination, but nonetheless, still in this life, he's supposed to become paratmanishta. He's supposed to become attached to Krishna. And the best way to become attached to Krishna is not simply by becoming detached from hearth and home and wife and family and worldly obligations in society, or as Prabhupada said of himself, to become like a dead man. But the way to become detached is by giving one's mind, one's body, and one's words to the service of the Supreme Lord. And this is real renunciation. This is the path that we can follow. And Srila Prabhupada encouraged that path by his own example, and of how to awaken the spirit of detachment within the heart. That way, a spirit of detachment was awakened within his heart because of his firm commitment to serve his spiritual master's instructions and to spread the message of Krishna consciousness for the enlightenment and welfare of others. That was his attachment. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. By rendering service to the Lord, then automatically detachment is awakened within the heart. Knowledge and detachment is awakened. This is the best way to become detached. But as Prabhupada said of himself, he said, sometimes it's not so easy. And Prabhupada even tells another story. He tells the story in his own words. I don't have it, but I remember him describing it in one lecture. It was on the, I think it was on the disappearance day of Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Maharaj, when he was speaking about Keshava Maharaj who had given him sannyas. And it was in 1968, I believe, he was speaking to some disciples in Seattle. And he was describing how, in his own words, how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had appeared to him in a dream to take sannyas. I mentioned this the other night. And Prabhupada was saying to his disciples, he said, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta spoke to me in this way, I was thinking, and these are his words he used, oh, how horrible. Thought it was very, he felt that he wasn't ready for it yet. He was thinking, this is horrible. How am I going to do it? And then, as we heard the other night, and we also heard the story told by Bhakti Rakshaka Shira Maharaj, B.R. Shira Maharaj, that Prabhupada, first time, he was thinking, yes, this is horrible. He came and asked, but he didn't do it. But on the second time, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta appeared to him again, then he realized that this order is divine, it's coming from above, and Prabhupada quotes the verse, Yasyahami Anugrahe Harishetad, Yasyahami Anugrahe Harishetad Dhanam Shanai, that when Krishna is particularly very merciful towards his devotee, then he leaves him in a very embarrassing situation by taking everything away from him. So Prabhupada was saying of his own life, he was working so hard, trying to make so much money, his business was falling apart, his family, while he was preaching in his home, it's actually described while he was preaching in his home, all his family members would be in the other room drinking tea. And everything was falling apart, and his family, one by one, he could understand, and at that particular point, as he described, I tried to do my best, I tried to fulfill responsibilities. It's getting to, how old was he at that time? I was I guess he was in his late 50s, mid to late 50s, which is the time when one's supposed to gradually detach from family life. So then he realized that this is divine will. Krishna is taking everything away from me. And now I have to be pushed. And my spiritual master has pushed me to take the step that I was unwilling to take before. And he took that step, not to go to the forest, to grow his hair and beard, his nails, and to live off roots and berries, and to live in a cave, and to subject himself to the snow, and to the fire, and to the sunshine and the rain. He didn't do that. He actually showed by his spirit of yukta vairagya that he was going to use his body, what was left of his body, and even to the point of suffering 2 heart attacks on the Jaladuta, still demonstrating his determination to give his life, the rest of his life, for fulfilling the wishes of his spiritual master to spread the glories of Krishna consciousness, and taught what is the best way to take vanaprastha and to become sannyasi in the present age. And by divine arrangement, having met his spiritual master, this is awakening of this detachment that comes very naturally in the service of the Lord. So these are a few thoughts that came to my mind when I was looking at the verses this morning. I thought of Vidura, his instructions to Dhritarashtra taking his instructions to heart and leaving the palace and detaching himself. And I thought of Srila Prabhupada, our modern day vanaprastha sannyasi, who gave everything for the service of spreading Krishna consciousness and under the instructions of his spiritual master. These examples we have and we can follow. But same purpose is there. Detachment. What is that verse? Bhagavad Gita. One who works as he is obligated but is not attached to the fruits of the work, he is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. Anyone remember the Sanskrit? I remember the English. I forget the Sanskrit to that verse. Krishna says this is real detachment. That one who works, he is obligated, but is not attached to the fruits of his work. He is sasanyasi cha yogi cha, na niragniya na chakriya. He is the real renunciate, not he who lights no fire, performs no work. His renunciation might be artificial. But one who works, he is obligated, but is not attached. So this is detachment, is the purpose for vanaprastha. For those who become too attached and too entangled, is to forcefully awaken that sense of detachment. If one doesn't forcefully awaken it, then Krishna in the form of Kala, eternal time, hopefully he will awaken it. Okay. We can stop there. Thank you very much. I have to go. I have other commitments this morning. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.